After a night of deliberations, the jury handed down its verdict on Damon Cooper's role in the shooting of Central Coast horse trainer Alan Hall. Acquitted of murder, 33-year-old Cooper was found guilty of manslaughter by diminished responsibility.
I feel a lot more relieved than what I did this morning.
The jury accepted the defence that Cooper had been brainwashed by the late Cess Waters to kill Hall, his wife's lover.
My husband's life's been devastated by this matter.
Hall was shot dead on his Warnervale property 9 years ago. The three men arrested for the murder included Cooper, Cess Waters and his son Dean, a former heavyweight boxing champion. Cooper will also be sentenced for maliciously destroying Mr Hall's house by fire in 1988, which he pleaded guilty to. Justice Newman said it was a difficult case and will take a week to consider the matter before sentencing Cooper next Friday. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
The funding cuts have hit universities hard, and today students and teachers at Newcastle decided it was time to strike back. Protesters marched through the university, gathering peacefully outside the Vice-Chancellor's office to vent their frustration. And while they spoke of an unfair education system, the focus of the day was to tell the Vice-Chancellor to take a more active role in condemning the cuts.
I'm prepared to accept some criticism there. We were very vocal last August when the budget cuts were announced, but since that time we've been spending most of our time managing the university and managing the change that really has to take place.
Organisers say such rallies are the only way to see funding restored.
If enough students get out and the community and enough general staff and academics from the union make the point to the government that their policies are unpopular and unworkable, I think it can make a difference.
The students say they're not prepared to stop at today's protest. If there's no action soon, they'll plan further strikes and more government lobbying. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
It was a close call for a surfer at Fingal Bay north of Newcastle when he became separated from his board and swept out to sea. The Westpac helicopter was called in to help locate the board rider who'd been surfing with a group in 3-metre swells wrapping around the headland at Fingal Bay. Surf Club members managed to launch an inflatable rescue craft to rescue the surfer and later located his board well down the beach. Meanwhile, the region's rescue helicopter, returning from a medivac in Sydney, was diverted to Bondi Beach, where 2 more surfers were winched to safety. The chopper also guided a police launch to Bronte Beach to pick up 4 bodyboarders caught in big seas. Closer to home, the Port of Newcastle remains closed to shipping tonight. Several ships up-anchored and headed to sea, with gale force winds reaching 100 kilometres an hour earlier today. SES crews were out early, clearing fallen branches from strong overnight winds. The big seas provided a spectacle along the coast, some fishermen and surfers looking for sheltered spots. The wet weather lashing the coast had taken a big detour around Scone for just long enough to let the town's horse parade swing into the main street. Around 7,000 locals and visitors rugged up to cheer both horses and riders on their loop of the town. Horses take centre stage in a town whose history and industry revolves around the horse, from the early days of settlement through to rich breeding and racing concerns. All-time favourites, the Carlton Clydesdales, the Hunter River Lancers and light horse contingents.
Yeah, that's the beauty about the parade. It's not just centred on horses only. Children participate in the floats and that sort of thing, and I think the Aberdeen School won the best float, so that's an indication that everyone gets involved right across the board, not just with the horse industry.
Over the coming week, not just the town but its surrounding studs, wineries and racecourse will be on show. The Scone Cup Carnival gets underway on Thursday with the big race day Friday.
Culminates in the Gundy Gala Day at the end of the week, which is a great fun on next Sunday.
A war of words in Parliament today as both sides tried to blame each other for BHP's decision to quit steelmaking in Newcastle within 3 years at a cost of 2,500 jobs.
You were part of the problem that caused the BHP closure. You were part of the problem for 20 years, and any attempt to try and shift it to us is absolute humbug, and it won't wash with the battlers of Newcastle.
The honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister is thoroughly aware we confronted this problem and dealt with it
The
and
Leader
got
of the
the
Opposition
union
will
movement there
address
to
his
agree to
question.
changes.
The Prime Minister says the government will equal the state government's $10 million, but the money won't go to the Hunter Advantage Fund. The state government announced the scheme last week, but it now appears unlikely, as BHP hasn't even considered the request for its $5 million.
The proposal put by the New South Wales government is short-term, it is gimmicky, it won't provide any long-term relief.
The Prime Minister attacked unions for not inviting local Liberals John Tierney and Bob Baldwin to a public meeting about BHP in Newcastle late last week. He also blamed a late invitation from unions for Industry Minister John Moore's decision to attend the opening of the Crown Casino in preference to the gathering at City Hall. Meanwhile, the executive of the ACTU is in Newcastle for a 3-day conference to mark the union movement's involvement in the city's 200 years. But it was Newcastle's future that was of most concern today.
Our first priority would be to try and convince BHP corporate decision makers that their decisions are wrong and that they should revisit those decisions.
The efforts to save steelmaking in Newcastle will continue on Thursday, with the national strike of all BHP steel companies except Whyalla in South Australia. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Still reeling from BHP's decision to close down the Newcastle steelworks, Hunter residents may have expected extra financial attention from Treasury coffers. But come budget time, those hopes were dashed. The usual allocations for roads, including $76 million to upgrade the Pacific Highway, were included, while RAF-based Williamtown will receive an unspecified sum for further upgrades of facilities. The big disappointment, however, is on the employment front.
Unemployment is our central economic problem, and yet this budget does very little to address it. There are no specific measures in the budget, no new measures to address unemployment.
The Hunter's unemployment rate stands at around 11%, 2.3% above the national average. Unions have weighed in, claiming the budget's done nothing to create jobs in regional areas.
Tinkering around the edges with work for the dole or giving people bonuses to stay on until they're 65 will do nothing to bring down the unemployment level.
Local small businesses are calling it a cautious budget, with concessions on fringe benefits tax and a 3-month delay period on payroll tax.
That's all very well to give us 3 months. I'm very pleased for that, but the tax has got to be paid anyway, so, you know, thanks for nothing.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
No sci-fi flick, these combat scenes are a glimpse of soldiering in the 21st century. Doing away with the traditional hit-and-miss tactics, the Army is testing concepts that keep the enemy constantly within its sights. By harnessing the latest digital technology, such as a satellite tracking system, night vision goggles and head cameras, the Army has the ability to make the modern soldier as capable as several diggers.
People's knowledge of what's going on increases dramatically, makes the forces far more flexible and far more responsive. That way you can do a lot more with less.
Called Project Wandara, Phase 1 is being trialled at the Singleton Army Base.
Already we are seeing some significant impacts of some technologies, such as intersection radios or communications and, as I said before, thermal imaging.
These developments are helping to revolutionise the battlefield. Looking like a modern-day Terminator, this soldier has the ability to shoot around corners by using thermal imaging technology. For the first time, the intersection radios will allow individual soldiers in combat to communicate with each other, eliminating the need to shout orders which they often can't hear over gunfire, which the enemy can hear as well. It makes battle much faster and far more effective. Back at the command post, the digital technology will ultimately allow officers to manipulate the battle on computer like pawns in a chess game. For the soldier in the field, the added surveillance is a comforting thought.
We'll last a bit longer out there.
Tomorrow's warrior won't become a reality until 2005. Simone Cobb, NBN News.
Toronto started the match undefeated at home, South's undefeated away, but one way or the other, one record was going to crack. Darren Forward did his bit to keep the Lions on track. Before the visitors opted against the 2 points shortly after, quick hands out the backline, finding Brian Bowd and a 10-0 South's lead. The Scorpions bit back. But the Lions had the answers. They took a 12-point lead to half-time and were never headed. Lakes remains on the top of the league ladder, unbeaten in 6 rounds. It's one of only a couple of teams that's played all of its matches. The Lions win takes them into second place. Central has 2 games to catch up, while Waratah Mayfield is still to register points. With Souths and Wests undefeated this season, a lot was hinging on the match of the round, and with defence playing a key role, both sides struggled to find the net. With 15 minutes left in the first half and scores locked at 0-0, Souths was then presented with the best scoring opportunity of the match. Souths looked set to find the breakthrough. Using pace and accurate passing, it eventually came in the 25th minute. South's smart teamwork was starting to pay dividends, and in the countdown to the break, they netted their second. West never came back, Souths winning by 3.
For the past 2 years, the police force has been under siege with revelation after damaging revelation at the Wood Royal Commission. It's left all police battered and bruised.
We have difficulties with the police service, but I think we also need to recognise that most of our police are working hard and doing a fine job for the community.
In an effort to move beyond the Royal Commission, officers from the East Lakes Patrol are spending 2 days team building. The highlight, the presentation of the inaugural East Lakes Excellence Award to Constable Alan Jansen. The award was judged not by his commanders, but his fellow officers out in the field.
I can't see if I've done one thing outstanding. I think it's just I must have had a good run there somewhere with the rest of the boys.
Outgoing Regional Commander Heinz Muller believes the award is an important step toward restoring the force's badly dented morale.
We need to get the Royal Commission behind us. It is behind us now. We've got to get on with the job.
The Royal Commission notwithstanding, there's still some room for good-natured graft within the East Lakes Patrol.
Yeah, I'd say there'll be a few shouts at the bar later on for that one.
Phil Hind, NBN News.
The pitfalls of living next to one of Australia's main air defence bases. Slades Road, Williamtown has been identified in draft RAAF noise maps as being in the severe noise bracket.
The house vibrates, crockery vibrates, interferes with the television, I can't hear on the phone.
The maps outline those areas most affected by aircraft noise. The darker the colour, the noisier the area. Port Stephens Council says it's now pushing for Slades Road residents to be compensated by the federal government.
Unfortunately, they're in an intolerable position. We can't see a way out for them, except if the federal government would agree to compensate them in some way. That would be really the only way we can see as a solution for them.
Aircraft noise has been a major issue hindering development in Port Stephens. Until now, Council has been unwilling to push ahead with new developments and subdivisions.
It is a start and it's not an end. It's a beginning of a whole new process of really accurate assessment of development applications so that we'll know what land is suitable for what kind of development.
RAAF representatives have indicated they may look at altering flight paths to reduce the noise impact further. Blake Doyle, NBN News. Rutherford's reputation as a light industrial centre is growing. Work has begun on a 70-hectare site at the end of Racecourse Road to accommodate new industries. And it appears the Rutherford site will be popular, with several businesses already interested.
Without even starting the marketing phase at this stage, there's a significant amount of interest. In fact, there are already companies indicating that they want to locate here in Rutherford.
Those companies include a major supermarket outfitter as well as mining support industries. With job losses to come after the BHP Steelworks closure, Maitland Council is hoping the industrial site will take up some of the unemployment slack.
We've already identified that there's a significant number of employees that actually from BHP that actually live up in the Maitland area. So to be able to provide ongoing employment opportunities through these new businesses is something we're well and truly behind.
Businesses are hoping to be on site by year's end. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
With 5 of the state's 7 power stations and the vast majority of electricity workers, the Hunter Valley and Central Coast are at the heart of the privatisation debate. The Treasurer's $22 billion industry sell-off has received a hostile reception, not least from ALP backbencher and left faction convener Bryce Gaudry.
It was dropped as a bombshell and in fact not given to the caucus. It was pushed under the doors of Labor members around about 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon.
Mr Gaudry claims the privatisation plan was hatched in secret and breaks a Labor pre-election commitment not to sell off the industry. He also takes little comfort in guarantees of no job losses for 3 years.
After that time, obviously, cost cutting will be taken into consideration as the market drives down the cost, and jobs would be lost. There's no doubt about that. It's happened in every industry that has been privatised.
Even though the left doesn't have the numbers in caucus, Mr Gaudry is promising the Treasurer a knockdown, drag-out battle. Sentiments echoed by the union movement in the Hunter.
We don't expect it from a Labor government. The Treasurer's telling us it'll be a wonderful job creation opportunity. That's ludicrous.
The Newcastle Trades Hall Council has called a meeting of electricity industry unions for Monday afternoon to begin formulating a plan to short-circuit the privatisation push. Phil Hind, NBN News.
Newcastle has a brave history of battling the sea to win riches of cargo and coal. Even now, as pleasure boats cruise the port, efforts continue to rebuild the breakwalls from the ceaseless ravages of the sea. 100 years ago, a crew of 12 in the sturdy lifeboat Victoria II, built like a cork to be tossed about in the worst seas, rowed to the rescue of sailors and their ships breaking up on the infamous bar.
In 1904, the most famous rescue that the Victoria II did was the Adolphe rescue, where the lifeboat Victoria II rescued 47 people.
This is all that's now left of the Adolphe. Its counterpart, the Victoria II, has weathered much better. This weekend it'll take centre stage at a special festival at the Newcastle Maritime Museum. As well as showing off the Victoria II's restoration, the Maritime Museum has a weekend of activities planned, including tours, heritage dances and model boat displays. Meanwhile, across town, another glimpse of the past at the Cooks Hill Gallery. A bicentenary collection of early paintings of Newcastle showing the coastline, settlement and harbour scenes opens tonight. The exhibition has been drawn from local private collections.
That win last weekend over Gordon has been the talking point of the AAMI Cup. The Wildfires jumped into the top 5 with a thorough 11-point victory. It was their best effort this season. It's another big battle this week, Eastwood in Sydney.
Play an expensive game and a game similar to ours, so there's a couple of reasons we'd like to knock them off. They gave us a bit of a pelting last year and we'd like to skip over the top of them on the table too.
Buoyed by their recent efforts, there is a buzz at training. Selectors originally kept the entire side together for the Eastwood clash, although a hamstring strain to John Allinson has opened the way for Brad Dilley to return as outside centre. But fellow New South Wales under-21 reps Jared Heaney and Andrew James have both been overlooked in the name of continuity.
They'll be out again next week when they play for New South Wales under-21s again, and to disrupt the team just for the sake of 1 week didn't seem worthwhile. But
fullback Nathan Freese is again expected to play a crucial role. Last week he scored a try and landed 7 from 9 for a personal tally of 23.
When he's hot, and last weekend he was very hot. He's a very good kicker. He's right back on track now, and we're expecting Frizzer to kick us a few more wins this year too.
Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
Only yesterday, the National Council of Churches spoke out about divisions in society fuelled by the Pauline Hanson debate. Ms Hanson responded, telling the church to butt out of politics.
Far from being political, it hits at the very heart, I think, of human rights and the equality of individuals, the equality of nations, of peoples, of ethnic groups.
Church leaders in Newcastle, recognising anger, confusion and resentment over industrial downturn and an uncertain future, are calling for calm during the potentially explosive atmosphere of a Hanson visit.
She has every right to come here and say what she wants to say. People have every right to protest and object. But the way that happens is very important for us as the city.
We're appealing to the people of the city and the region to be calm, to let her come, let her speak, but don't foment trouble.
Several letters from Bishop Hurft inviting Pauline Hanson to discuss her views have been ignored. The invitation remains open, according to the Sri Lankan-born bishop who immigrated to Australia.
Yes, I'm an Asian who comes from New Zealand and who's come to the back door, so to speak. I think that's very unfortunate, and I would like to talk with her.
The Norths Tigers clash opened a busy afternoon at the International Hockey Centre after a surprise loss to Maitland last weekend. The Double Blues were hoping to get back on track, but from a short corner the Tigers were first to score. North supplied the pressure at the other end of the field and finished too strongly for a 4-3 victory. A good day for Novos in the Women's Premiership. The first beat Regals 5-3 after the second started the day with a win over Maitland. Newcomers to the competition, Maitland had its chances but too often failed to convert. Novos' experience proving the difference in their 3-1 win.
She's not even here yet, and already the controversial MP is making sparks fly. Pauline Hanson's visit to Newcastle on Friday has been thrown into turmoil by council suddenly charging an extra $9,000 to hire out the Civic Theatre.
I was very angry, naturally. I think it's been a political move, particularly with the timing that they used.
Mr Archer says he and theatre manager Malcolm Calder agreed $7,500 would cover costs including security. But overnight that figure has blown out to $16,500. Even if the visit was sold out, organisers would be left with a $7,000 debt.
If you squash one side of the debate, essentially you throw away democracy and start living in what you could almost term a dictatorship.
But Council General Manager Robert Gibbons says the costs are justified because the Heritage Theatre needs extra security in case rowdy protests occur. Regardless, Mr Archer is adamant the show will go on.
Although described as an encouraging response, the door knocks $271,500 collected across Newcastle and Lake Macquarie is down on last year's tally by nearly $52,000.
Well, it's showing that there are a lot of people out there hurting now that we've never seen before, that middle-class Australia has not got the cash flow that it once had.
The Salvos say a drop in the number of volunteer collectors, the size of donations and yesterday's fine autumnal weather also contributed to missing their target.
Well, the $534,000 that we've asked for the general public to help with is the shortfall of the $2.5 million that we're going to spend on welfare here this coming year in Newcastle.
People are being asked to dig deep and there's still time.
The Red Shoulder Pool is still open till the end of the financial year, and we just asked the people if they would mail their donation in or take it to Westpac or St George Banks.